welcome everybody to a Wednesday product spotlight. Today on Dave Cooper Live, please welcome Chris Krager, principal of KRDB architectural firm in Modular. Today we are talking about a vertically integrated and entrepreneurial firm acting as a developer, designer, and builder. Today, Chris will walk us through how modular construction and good design comes together to bring extraordinary architecture to life. See how KRDB and Modular are working together to develop, design, and build with focus on affordable modern design in a primarily urban infill context. And what is the why behind all of this, you may ask? Maintaining the creative and financial control over the design and building process allows KRDB to deliver a quality end result on budget. Economy, efficiency, and expediency are the drivers for them to seek out alternative construction methods. From specific material advances to modularity at a variety of scales, KRDB looks to find better and more efficient ways to build that conform to their aesthetics and economic criteria. But first, we need to thank our sponsors. We cannot do any of this without them. A big shout out to Ben Hershey at Forward Solutions Group. Forward Solutions Group, we want to thank you for allowing us to deliver these examples of construction innovation. Forward Solutions Group is successfully driving companies to succeed where others have failed. To learn more about Forward's recent acquisition of Modular, which is an ERP solution for offsite manufacturing, you want to reach out and contact Ben Hershey at ben@forwardsolutionsgroup.com. And also a big shout out to our friends Howick. Howick Ltd has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and produces innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the U.S. and the world. Check out their machines buyer's guide for offsite and modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, www.howickltd.com. So thank you to both of them. Again, without our sponsors and without the support of all of you out there watching, we cannot do this show each and every week and bring you the best of the best that's out there building it better. All right, without further ado, let's jump into it and welcome Chris Krager to the show. Chris, how are you today?
Good, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, thanks for hopping on the show. We had some changes up, and Chris Krager came to mind. Chris, listen, I want to get into this, but first, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital. We will find somebody that knows you and bring them on the show, and they will tell us everything. But you only got 2 minutes to do it. The floor is yours. Go ahead, Chris.
There we go. Okay. Well, born and raised in Detroit, went to business school, worked in banking for 5 or 6 years before I realized that that was not going to be the life for me. Went to graduate school for architecture at University of Texas at Austin. That's what brought me to Austin many, many years ago. And I started my vertically integrated develop, design, build firm pretty much right out of a graduate school because I realized there was an opportunity to do something like that in a growing Austin market. And so, the core principles of KRDB from the beginning were high quality, affordable design done sustainably, as you mentioned already, starting with urban infill projects, but then also doing Austin Energy Green Builder Program, LEED, et cetera, et cetera. So we were very fortunate early on to get some national press, get some coverage. We started to get some inquiries from folks in other cities, like, can you do something like you did in Austin in another market? And so after about 5 or 6 projects in Denver, Oahu, Baton Rouge, New Jersey, where we would design a house for somebody and know we could build it in Austin for a certain price point, and then they would turn around and have it bid out, and it would be 25 to 50% over what we could build it for here in Austin. And then the projects didn't happen. That
Right.
frustration led me to kind of look into how we could take advantage of this opportunity. Clearly, there was a latent demand for good design in a lot of markets. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's a wide range of, states that you guys design and build in. And we'll hop into some of that. Let's get into how Krager and Associates and you all came together to
right.
really build what you guys have built today.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we're vertically integrated, which clarify that we We develop, we design, and we build. So we go out. We've been an entrepreneurial firm from day one. Our first project, we went out and we bought a couple of lots. We designed and built houses, and we sold them. Built them under the Austin Energy Green Builder Program. Much or most of our work is not conventional. It's not a conventional architecture practice. We're just doing the projects ourselves, or we joint venture with a lot of people. A lot of our projects are joint ventures where someone might come to us with a lot. Maybe they have cash and they know of a piece of land, or they have a concept, and then we work with them and we become a partner in that endeavor, to execute that project. And we, we've been doing development projects from day one. So we'll go out and we'll find raw land, we'll get entitlements, we'll get zoning changes, take it through that process, coordinate all
Right.
the sub consultants, et cetera, design the project, and then we also act as a general contractor. So that kind of vertical integration allows us, because of the primary focus of the firm, which is affordable, sustainable design. What I learned or knew early on is if we just designed it and handed it off to another general contractor or developer, it was very unlikely that that project was going to get executed at the price point that we were trying to target.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the norm across any job, really, right? When you're used to building something to your standards, to your specifications, to your level of finish and quality, and then you hand it off and expect the same. It doesn't happen on the first go round. It takes several iterations of that to really to bring that in. So, Chris, you're covering a lot of states. Are all your projects modular?
they're not. They're not. So we still do conventional site-built projects. I mean, as you mentioned in the intro, I mean, the firm has been a bit of a laboratory from day one. I mean, you name it, we've built it. We've used SIPS panels, we've used metal-clad SIPS panels, we've done panelized construction, concrete block, et cetera. So, we choose a building system and an approach that best suits the project. And there's a variety of, of factors that go into making that decision.
Sure. And let's kind of get into that. Let's talk about the
Mhm.
develop and design, and building, using the modular construction. Can you walk us through what your process is with develop, design, build?
Yeah, sure. We will, typically, especially in a market like Austin, as we grew, I mean, our projects grew. So we started with doing, a couple single family houses, and then over time, two houses became four, became eight, and then as the Austin market grew and the prices started to become prohibitive, we had to start looking at larger scale projects to be able to, again, because we couldn't find single family or infill lots. We said, okay, let's go out and look for some raw acreage. So, for example, I guess it's about 11, 12 years ago, when the price points in Austin started to drive us further and further east. We found a 5-acre tree farm. We took it through getting zoning changes, the entitlements, et cetera. And that project was a prototype for holistic, sustainable development we called Soul. And that website is solaustin.com, SOL Austin.com. And I figured while we were at it, and the reason we jumped to that scale is we knew we could find raw land that, with development costs, our development expertise, we could have a per door lot cost that, again, would allow us to, put houses on the ground at a price point that we felt were attainable. And then we figured while we're doing that, we might as well put all of our interests together in one project as a firm, as a prototype, that would be
Mhm.
this model for holistic, sustainable development. Which, the nice thing about that, again, controlling that process is, I didn't have somebody vetoing that, like somebody saying, well, no, you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. Just make it financially sound. I mean, for me, the
Right.
interesting thing there is that what was really important for me was to be able to prove that you could hit the triple bottom line, that you could do a sustainable development and make that, you could make that profitable, and that was something that we could then take out to the development community at large and say, hey, here's a model that we think you guys would be interested in. So, that was how that process played out. And there's a lot of facets to that. I mean, we had to come in and we found we did 40% affordability. So we went out and we found a not-for-profit partner and we brought them on board, and then went to the city and we procured $1.5 million in buy down subsidies to ensure the affordability of those units. And then, and then we were also able to get, the local neighborhood group and an environmental group to not only support our zoning change to go to zoning council. And one of the main reasons they were in support of it was because we were giving something back to the community. We were giving, a meaningful level of affordable housing. And so
Right.
we were able to go to zoning and planning with these folks behind us, get the approval on that. Then we had basically a project that was 40% pre-sold, went to a bank, and it was a slam dunk in terms of getting the financing for the development. So
Yep.
the project was a great success. It ended up on the cover of the New York Times home section. Some point it won. It was awarded the Austin Green
Congrats.
Build. They started an Austin Green Build Award about 5 years ago, and Seoul was awarded Project of the Year, inaugural Project of the Year. So the project was a big success. So, and I find that fun. I mean, all the components that go into architecture are also, you know, it's the same skill set in like putting these projects together, like finding the land, finding the partners, finding the concept, and kind of packaging it. So it's like it's taking that same architectural skill set and kind of broadening it across the entire project.
Sure.
From
Do
the
you see more architectural firms doing this now, or what do you see as the I guess the biggest barrier to entry into what you guys have done?
brain damage, um,
Hair loss?
hair loss.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a lot more design build firms. When we
Yep.
started in Austin 20 years ago, there were only a couple of design build firms, both here and I think nationally. I think the one thing you've definitely seen more of is a lot of design build firms.
Yep.
Um, the vertically integrated part of it, not as much. I mean, I think there's more of that. Architects with an entrepreneurial bent. It just like that's a that's having the patience to be able to deal with going through that process and the politics of that process.
Mhm.
That's not something that it takes a certain kind of constitution to deal with that kind of thing. And so I don't think there are quite as many vertically integrated firms as there are design build firms.
Sure.
But I do think the appeal of design build, again, it's like, again, controlling more of that process. I think a lot of architects have seen the advantages of that, and there are more design build firms.
How important is the collaboration of your partners in on these projects when you talk about going through zoning and sustainability and some of the groups that are in and around the community to help you get the process approved sooner and faster, but two in the overall completion of the project from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I mean, like the Soul project I was talking about, I mean, if we would have just gone and bought the land and then just skipped the process of reaching out to the community, first going to the not-for-profit, then reaching out to the community,
Mhm.
pitching it to them, getting their feedback. I mean, in that process, we pitched the concept to it was not only the neighborhood group, but an environmental group. And, they really loved the affordability, they loved the
Mhm.
sustainability. uh, Sorry about that. But
Sure.
one of the, there were questions about the modern design.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things we did is I offered to take a group. I said, hey, listen, if you want to see what these houses look and feel like, I'd be happy to take as many people as would like to go on a tour. And I had like 10 or 12 people accept it. We just happened to have a 4 unit spec project we were working on at that time. I took them to a couple different houses, and at the end of it, actually a couple of people were like, well, when are these houses going to be available? So we really upfront like make sure we do the groundwork to get the kind of buy-in from all of the kind of whether they may not even be partners in the project, but I mean they are partners in a way. If it's a neighborhood, if it's a community, I mean this is going to be part of the fabric of their neighborhood. But yeah, that's really crucial, and getting the buy-in from the not-for-profit and their board. And they had a long history with the city of Austin. So to be able to go to the city and request the funding, the buy down subsidies, having this long-term partner who said, yeah, we think this is a great idea. Again, that was a slam dunk for getting that subsidy financing. So yeah, that collaborative effort, and on all of our projects, the kind of degree to which we have those partners that are like, some of them the kind of how involved or how kind of silent they are just varies from project to project, and we've had it
Mhm.
all along that spectrum. So, but we
Sure.
welcome that. I mean, because on projects like this and at this scale, there's so many aspects of this that have to be covered by so many people. We welcome the collaborative
Sure.
effort. So
I appreciate that. All right, listen, everybody. If you are just joining us, we have KRDB and Ma Modular on the show today. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So get your tweets on as we're talking here and make sure you put it out there. If you're not following everything that Chris Krager is doing, please go and follow him after the show, of course. And if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. So for all of you that are watching us live right now, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. And for the rest of you out there that are watching this for your coffee on Saturday morning or whenever the case may be, we appreciate you as well. All right. So, Chris, I know we have some photos that we can jump into and show. Why don't we
yeah.
give people a little bit of a taste of some of the projects, because high design is very important to everything you guys do, and I think it's important that we show that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then that kind of tells the story of the evolution
Right.
of our modular endeavors. And so, as I started to say earlier, we had these projects that were initially they were going to be site built projects, and we weren't able to have them executed at the price point. And so that failure led me to look into modular construction. I had put myself through undergraduate school as a framer, had worked for a company in Detroit who actually specifically worked on modular houses. And so I had this literal hands on experience with modular construction. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start calling around because at this point, 15, 16 years ago, there were probably, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 modular companies in the central Texas region that were kind of within
Right.
driving distance of Austin. So I started calling around and looking for a company that would even be willing to take a meeting with me. And so I found one, no longer exists, Patriot Homes out of Waco, and they agreed to take on the project. And what I did is rather than I wanted to use myself as a guinea pig, so I went out and I bought a lot, and we designed this our first house. Now, the first phase of Mom Modular, the idea there was we wanted to balance the demands and requirements of the factory environment, which favors redundancy, et cetera, with design, which that people would want flexibility. They'd want to be able to put a house together the way they wanted that house to exist. And so we came up with a kind of kit of parts approach where we designed, I don't know how many, it was 12 or 16 pieces that people could then, with a program that they had, go and put together a house. And so, and we did that after visiting with the factories, understanding how they work, knowing what the limiting parameters were, knowing what kind of technologies they use, et cetera, and kind of running these designs by them and their engineers to make sure that what we were doing, met their requirements and was
Right.
buildable, we wouldn't have issues with. And so, what you're looking at here is the Luna house, which was our prototype house, is a 1,500 square foot, 3 bedroom, 2 bath house that we had fabricated. I built on spec. Little interesting sidebar story there. In the middle of the engineering process, I got a call from Patriot Homes, John Caracardi, who was the architect there. He said, Patriot is going bankrupt. We're going out of business. Sorry about that. I was like, "Oh my god, what am I gonna do?" And about a week later, John calls me and he says, "Hey, I've landed with this company in Elkhart, Indiana. We'd like to build this house for you." I was like, "John, that's 1,600 miles away." He's like, "Don't worry about it. We can do it." And so, we were in the middle. I had bank financing. I'd closed on it. We were in the
Oh
middle of
man.
design. So we ended up having this house fabricated by a firm that also privately owned, small firm, which unfortunately about a year or so afterwards ended up also going out of business. But they built this house for us
Well, at least you
and
got the
shipped.
project.
Yeah, shipped it 1,600 miles to Austin. We set it here. And then this was a little ADU, accessory dwelling unit that we did. It was actually a true granny flat. We had a client couple in North Austin whose parents both worked. They're both professors at Baylor. They had
Yeah.
grandkids. They wanted to come down every weekend. And so this was our variation on the Texas dog trot. Basically, two mods, a living dining kitchen mod with a bedroom mod with a big screen porch in between. This one was in Dwell magazine. We get a lot of
Wow,
interest in
beautiful.
this. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's this is the screen porch in between the two mods. So going through this process, and after about 6 7 years of doing single family projects where we had this kit of parts approach, we had as I said, those weren't the only two companies that went out of business. We had a couple other companies that we'd been talking to go out of business. um, and then the companies that were ready, willing, and able to build for us were like, hey, listen, this would be a lot easier if we didn't have to re-engineer, redesign, and reprice every time you came to the table. I said, okay, we get it. So we took a list of about probably 6,000 people at this point, and we had a mailing list, and people would go to our website, not just put their name in, but fill in where are you, what kind of house are you looking for, program, budget, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
We called through that list and narrowed down our product offerings to, okay, what is it that most people are looking for? So a majority of it was houses in the 14 to 1700 square foot range, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. Some smaller stuff, ADUs, 500 square foot, 1,000 square foot, and then a couple of larger houses. And so we retooled the offering, said, okay, here are the 12 plans. So if you go to the Ma Modular website today and you go to the Find Your Ma tab, that's where you'll see the 12 floor plans that we offer. Now people can customize those as far as choosing their finishes, choosing the exteriors, the interior finishes, et cetera. But the plans are engineered, approved. We don't make changes to the plans. Um, at about the same time that we were kind of going through this evolution of the single family product, some opportunities were presented to us to look into a higher density, larger scale, higher density
Right.
product. A couple in particular, we were working with a client in Los Angeles who we had done a single family house for. Actually, it was at the IBS. We built it on the lot of the convention center at Vegas, and then shipped it, assembled it, disassembled it, and then shipped it out to Los Angeles. And then we've got an ongoing relationship with that developer where we're now doing, we started with small lot projects where we're doing 4 and 7 and 8 unit kind of townhouse projects.
Hmm.
And now we're up to, that's kind of evolved to where we're doing a 150,000 square foot mixed use multifamily project on 6 acres there. But we started with these kind of townhouse projects in LA. And then in Austin, I had a project that I had a partner on that we were doing a 24,000 square foot mixed use multifamily project, which is the MLK project, which would be the next images we'd look at here. Um, and so it seemed like a great opportunity to put to test the modular delivery method for larger scale infill projects,
Right.
particularly in markets like Austin, like Los Angeles, where there are so many opportunities in this missing middle category where you like this project, we had a half-acre site, very tight site, adjacent to a single family neighborhood. So, one of the appeals of going the modular route was less time on site, kind of disrupting the neighborhood minimally, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I just agreeing with
Yeah,
you. Heads on beds.
yeah. Yeah, and then and also on these with these multifamily projects that there is there's some design redundancy that you will be able to kind of use and reuse. There's only so many ways you can you know skin that cat in a context like this in terms of plan layouts. And so this project, the MLK project, 20 of the 24,000 square feet was offsite construction, volumetric mod. What you see here on the right hand side was a site built, the 4,000 square foot, the corner was site built. But then we had a podium, which is on the left, the far left. And then we had 1 story, 630 square foot, 1 bedroom, single box mods, 1,300 square foot, 2 story, 2 box mods, and 1,800 square foot, 3 story, 3 box mods. This project here, we finished it about 2 years ago. Palomar Modular fabricated it out of Dallas. And so this was our first true multifamily mixed use project that we completed, like I said,
Yeah.
about going on 2 years ago now.
Yeah, and
Um,
what was it like? I mean, when you're vertically integrated, being a developer as well, how hard was it to get the trades up to speed on what they'd have to do to keep your numbers tight, right? Because a lot of times if they don't know, they're going to pad their numbers. What did you guys do to kind of control some of this and really educate them?
I mean, there's a lot of hand holding on that, and that even
Yeah,
starts with the city. The city of Austin actually was pretty good. The project I was mentioning in Ventura that we've been working on, we really had to the building department was really concerned. They'd never had they haven't, well, we haven't built it yet, but we're in the process. But in the early stages, like convincing them that modular construction on a large scale multifamily project was not going to be a problem. There's
right,
definitely a kind of step by step thing on the with the trades. Yeah, it's a good point. Like especially on the MEP trades, the first round of bidding on the MLK project, the plumber and the electrician, their bids came back as if they were bidding the whole project, even though we had pretty, thorough diagrams. I mean, one of the things is really your document set, and creating a document set that's almost like an IKEA, like something that you wouldn't need, tags on to
right,
understand
right,
it. But we had to sit down with the plumber and the electrician and the mechanical contractor and really walk through exactly what their scope of work is. Hey, this plumbing system is complete down to this level. You just have to make the crossover connections. You're going to build the waste system in the crawl space. So there's a lot of education and kind of hand holding in that regard. I mean, and then hopefully the next project you keep that team together so that you can kind of maintain that kind of, you don't have that transfer of knowledge, stays with that
right.
that that pool of subcontractors that you have.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Well, it is, and it is a transfer of knowledge, and an education costs money, as we say on the show.
right.
You're
Exactly.
gonna learn one way or the other, whether you go to school or you get your back end handed to you. You're gonna pay somehow, especially in the construction world. Let's say hi to a couple quick people here, real quick. Saying hello, Stephen Basic. What's up, Dave Cooper? Hey, do you know Stephen Basic, Chris?
I do not.
Ste Stephen Basic is an architect out of New England, but he builds across the country. Huge into the passive house and sustainability. Has a huge YouTube following. He's on the Build Show with Matt Reisinger and his team every week, if not every day of every week. So really good to know each other. You two should definitely talk because he is one
Yeah,
person that understands it wholeheartedly.
great.
All right, we got Greg Ugaldi in the house, coming to us from Twitch. What's happening, Greg? I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know Greg, Chris, but Greg is the immediate past chairman of the National Association of Home Builders. Last year, he's since stepped out after 2 tours. This is the guy that runs at the top, updates the president, secretary of housing on housing in Washington D.C. Greg Ugaldi, it's great to see you, my friend. I hope all is well. So we appreciate everybody always tuning in. So let's get back into some of these other projects that you have here. I'm going to put it back on screen. We got about 8 minutes here to run through some of this because I really want to end up on the back side of this where we talk about some of your existing things. So what are we looking
Right.
at here on this one?
Yeah. So this is on the right hand side are the two mod 1,300 square foot, 2-story townhouse units. So
Yep.
each, yeah, and the nice thing about this model is that the interiors on these units, except for those horizontal mate lines, can be done in the factory. They come out with, cabinets, countertops, lighting
Right.
fixtures, paint with, sheetrock with, take float texture paint up to the marriage line, et cetera.
Yep.
And the other thing, as we've kind of evolved through these multifamily projects, we learned a lot with this project with the combination of the podium and the site build. Like if I had to do this again, I would try to go 100% site build. Having the 100% mod, having the site build element in between the mod elements
Yeah.
definitely kind of threw the timeline off. And we've had some projects since this project where we've kind of worked it out in design where we're able to site build, we get stem walls and then it's 100% mod from the stem walls up, as opposed to trying to mix the site build with the modular construction.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, even places where you can't get the modular probably makes more sense even just to do full panelization of those sections so they go in quicker. Um,
Right.
So when you say you run, it slowed you down. Can you give a couple examples of what that truly meant, right? So people understand why did it slow you down?
Well, the staging of the project, with literally having the site built components sandwiched in between the modular construction.
Hmm.
So the staging of those trades and how that worked and how it worked with inspections and tying these things in, and then having, the commercial part of it had to do with the permitting process in the city of Austin that kind of threw some delays in there.
Yeah,
But having the trades having to like their schedule as opposed to having a kind of a single Gantt schedule that's unbroken, like having to work with them. I mean, it's hard, there's challenges already with like wrapping subcontractors' minds around the modular construction. But then when we're
yeah,
putting these two things together and saying, well, we got this one timeline here, and then we've got commercial and residential, and there's permitting and inspection issues, and then coordinating the connection of these things, it led a complexity to the project that I think we could be avoided. So
sure. Well, absolutely. And I would imagine that you had some issues with MEPs and connecting everything as well. Would that be accurate?
absolutely, absolutely, yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, right? When you're doing modular and you have your third party inspections and all the volumetrics in place, you can just keep going with your set. But when you have a large project such as this one or any other one where you have podiums, you have site built projects, you have to stop for framing inspections, sheathing inspections, insulation inspection, tie down inspections, MEP inspection, right? All of that now comes into the project and will delay the rest of the project, especially if it's dead center in the middle of a set or where the modules are.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And like for example, on that note, there was work that could be done by the plumber or electrician in the
Yeah.
mods, but they were like, well, hey, we'd rather wait to come back till you have this, we get to this point on the site build. So
Right, right. And what are we looking at here on this photo?
what we're looking at is the back side of this is from the south side of MLK.
Mhm.
The south side of the project, there's a it's a single family residential neighborhood. And so we kind of want to scale. The project could have been much bigger based on our entitlements, but we wanted to be cognizant of the fact that we were backing up to a residential neighborhood. And so we kind of scaled it down to 2-story plus kind of with the massing, created a courtyard in the center of the building, that's utilized by all of the units. It's
Right.
kind of a quasi public space. There's
Mhm.
little walk up eateries on the corner. People can come in and sit in the courtyard in the center. What you're also seeing is each of the units, the townhouse units, also had their own outdoor spaces. So on the
Right.
ground floor, there were little kind of fenced in
Yeah, right here.
outdoor patios. Yeah. And then the 3-story units actually have balconies
Yep.
uh, on the second and third floor, which actually were built in the factory. So those came out, balconies built on the mod. So that stuff didn't have to be built on site. We just had to do our waterproofing and our finishing on it. And then what you don't see in this image is there's actually above the podium, there's a courtyard in between the 1-story and the two. So there's a second-story courtyard
Okay.
between the 1-story and the 2-story units. That's additional outdoor space that's shared by the units. And
Yeah.
here's an interior shot. And like I said,
Beautiful.
we can have these things finished. All of this stuff can be done in the factory. Except we don't hanging light fixtures. We won't install those because you don't want to ship
Yeah.
with things swinging around. But this is what we can get finished in the factory.
Sure, but they'll come in a box on the floor already in the unit waiting to be hung, right? That's the
Exactly.
difference. Yeah, for
Exactly. Yep.
sure. Talk
Yep.
to what did you guys use for mechanicals in these units? Did you use P packs? Are they full HVAC MEPs? Did you do
Yeah.
chaseways? How did you run all of your mechanicals?
So a couple things on the HVAC. We used mini splits,
Mhm.
and so we use the cartridge mini splits.
Yep. That's what I thought I
So the
saw in the kitchen ceiling there.
Yeah, exactly. So like on those 2-story mods, there's one
Yep.
in the kitchen that heats and cools the ground floor.
Yeah, I thought
And
so.
then on the second floor, so on those
Beautiful.
2-story units, there's 2 cartridges, ceiling cartridges in the 2 bedrooms upstairs, and then
Mhm.
one downstairs in with the,
Right.
the outdoor unit on the roof. And then one other thing, actually, if you go back to that image, Dave, um,
Yeah.
because the MEP design is crucial, what happened, the kitchen on the layout for these plans, the 2 and the 3-story units, there's kind of like living on one end, dining on the other end with the kitchen in the middle. And then we built 2 wing walls on either end of the
Yeah.
kitchen. and one was the kind of plumbing raceway, and the other was the electrical raceway. And so
Mhm.
that was a chases where we, like our sub panel was one on one side where that chase is, and then everything was coiled up above, and then it was a simple drop down into that cavity to connect, and then all the
Sure.
waste lines kind of came through that chase on the other side. So some upfront design considerations for the MEP. That's what I find, especially on these multi-story multifamily, really
Mhm.
coordinating with the engineers and the mod manufacturer on how, because when you're making these connections, I mean, you don't want to make these connections, right one on top of the other. You want to do
That's right.
have some offsets, make it easy to be able to get in there and make those
Yeah.
connections, et cetera. So
Well, in with any modular volumetric project, you almost have to design around the mechanicals and where they're coming and going from.
right,
Because if you design an entire project and think you're just going to plug and play the mechanicals like on a site built home, you're
yeah.
sorely mistaken. It's going to be a real nightmare and a pain on site. So I think that's important. Are you guys using any digital twins or using BIM, or how are you doing your design, and how are you working with the factories that you do work with?
Yeah, we're all Revit, so we're 100% BIM.
Yep. Great.
We Our engineers, fortunately, are as well. Actually, I'll give a little shout out. RCS is a Texas engineering firm that does MEP and PE. The nice thing about working with them, they do, because typically, like on a project like we were just looking at, you would usually have a modular structural, modular MEP, and then a site structural and a site MEP,
Yep.
and this firm does all of that, one-stop shop. So we get our structural and our MEP from them. They also work in Revit, so we literally can ship them our file, and then we can get back a file from them with their
Interesting.
MEP. hmm
So so let me understand that. So they share direct files with the manufacturer? Is that what they're doing? So how do they
Unfortunately,
design and then they just give it to the manufacturer?
yeah, unfortunately, we haven't gotten to the point. I've started early conversations with our couple of our manufacturers about going BIM.
Yep.
They're mostly still doing 2D. So
I know
what
it.
happens is RCS, our drawings and RCS's drawings, essentially will go out to the third party flattened, is 2D, appearing like conventional 2D
Right.
files that will get the third party approval.
Sure.
Someday, it would be great to be able to share models with the manufacturers.
Right.
It seems to make sense, especially, they have to create shop drawings. I mean, they could literally generate their shop drawings off of their BIM models. It would save them a
Right.
lot of time. So
I would love if there's a manufacturer out there listening and there's a reason why we're not using Revit or BIM. And I do understand that there was some, there's a lot of rework in their process when they have to switch, from their current 2D system or AutoCAD number 10 or whatever number they're on to make a switch and how things snap together in their mind and with their process. But I mean, I think we're far beyond that now. I believe personally that they should be able to make the switch. They should be using it. It's going to save them time, money, and headaches of fixing things in the field. That's the big
right,
thing here. There's a lot of
yeah.
that, and I think that's impressive. So let me just, and we're going to wrap up here. So when the mechanical and engineering firm does the drawing, then do they take responsibility to make sure the manufacturer is making sure that they're doing it exactly to the scale that they're requiring it to be done, or does that fall on you and your firm, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, we still have to review
Yeah,
those shop drawings and make sure. And there's a lot. I mean, there's still, and again, to your last point, like if they were literally just taking that model and generating their shops
right,
from it, we would avoid a lot of that. But unfortunately, no, we have not asked our sub consultants to do that. We want to make sure that everything's reconciled, that the PE and the MEP and the
right.
mod manufacturer, that's all reconciled. So we still have to go through and redline those and go through, several iterations of redlining those drawings.
You know what? I'm going to tell you, and then I keep saying we're going to wrap, but it drives me crazy. Here, I draw something up, or we have a project. I give it to a manufacturer, and then I got to check their work to make sure it was done the way I gave it to them. This is the stuff that, like, it makes my mind explode. And I know I'm going to get some of these manufacturer owners all over me, and I know there's reasons why they do it. But if we were all using digital twins and Revit and BIM, like we should be, then all of this stuff just magically overlays and it'll tell us where there's problems without us having to sit there and try and figure it out in 2D. At least that's my 2 cents.
I 100% agree. And like
Yeah,
I said, I've had initial conversations, and I think once they understand the advantages, I can't imagine there not
right.
being a shift. So
Right. All right. So let's get into two last things. Let's try and move through them if we can here real quick. Um, Misconceptions of modular. What do you run across right now? Today's day and age, what do you see as the misconceptions of modular today?
I think the primary one, and I'm sure you've probably talked about this, numerous times, is that modular is less expensive than site-built construction. Modular can be less expensive than site-built construction, but in our experience, if we're looking at apples and apples and the specs are the same, what we've found generally in the markets we're working in is that the cost of construction for site built and modular is pretty comparable.
Yeah.
And that waxes and wanes a little bit based on commodity prices and whatnot. But in general, my take on this is that the savings you realize with efficiencies in the factory are offset with the cost of shipping this thing to the site and then having to set it. I think once you get to a certain scale, you can start talking about some savings, but those have to be relatively significant, I think, in order to
Yeah.
meet that scale.
Yep, and I see, I'll go with that on single family homes, but when you get into multifamily homes, that's 6 months or, 12 months of savings of not site building something and all those inspections and all those delays, materials going up 300% and you're buying it now at the new number. There's the longevity of the time saving on these projects when we look at it cyclically and we look at also the lack of skilled labor that we're dealing with out there right now, right?
A
You
hundred,
got
you're
there's
100%
savings
right.
there. Yeah,
Totally. That's the thing. And yeah, actually, that was a perfect tag on there. That what I do tell people is time. Is that
that's right.
you should save on your schedule and time, especially when a project of that scale. Each one of the carrying cost per month is not insignificant in addition to the headache. So yeah, absolutely. If you have your ducks in a row and your I's dotted and your T's crossed, you should be
Right.
able to save 25-30% on your overall schedule minimum.
That's right. That's right. Just got to do all the hard work up front so it runs smoothly when you start
Right.
building the thing. All right, last
Exactly.
thing, Kindred. The Kindred project. Is this kind of like a kindred spirit? Is it the Kindred project? Walk us through.
I would I think that would be a fair assessment. Should I go ahead and share my screen
Yeah, go
here?
ahead.
Let's see.
Share it. And
Uh, let's see. Okay. Let's see. Are we seeing it now? Sorry.
not seeing yours yet. You got to hit the
Oh,
share button.
share. Okay, there we go. Share. Got it now, Dave?
I don't. So when you
Oh
hit
no.
the share and you pick on whatever it is you're sharing, then you got to click one more button to put it up.
Sorry there.
That's
Sorry
okay.
there. Share. Now?
Is it a slide or is it a
It is a slide.
Yeah. So if it's a slide, just you can go
Oh,
right into
sorry.
this.
It's a web page.
Yeah, yeah. So just go to share screen, click on share screen at the very top. You see where it says Chrome tab. There's three options: entire screen, window, and Chrome tab.
When I hit share, it says slides, video file, and share screen.
Hit share screen.
Okay, share screen.
Yep. And if it's a Chrome tab, click on the across top, entire window, and Chrome tab,
Oh, there we go.
and then click on it, and then hit the button that says share on the bottom right.
My apologies for the technical delay. There we go. Got it.
Got it now.
Excellent. So this is a concept project for it's a prototype for a 50 alternative 55 plus community. So
Mhm.
um, we are this is going to be the first of a series of projects. The first one is about 20 minutes south of Austin, 76 unit project on 6 acres.
Wow.
There's small units, 400, 550, and 900 square feet, kind of garden style units, cluster housing that are arranged around uh, landscape spaces. We've got a common house. I'm going to skip through here real quick to get to you can see these clustered around a common house and maker spaces. And
Right.
so it's a rental project, so not a for sale project. So we're going to hold this project. Um, and let me skip to the site plan real quick. Here we go. So you can see here, it's a 6-acre project with the old farmhouse in the middle. That'll be the common house. 2 acres of 500-year-old mature live oak trees, essentially a garden or a park in the middle of the project with the small units that are clustered around outdoor spaces around the perimeter. There's 75 million baby boomers coming to retirement age in the next 15 years. And when you look at what's offered to them out there, most of it is not appealing, I think, to our target clientele, which is
Right.
somebody who's interested in design and interested in sustainability. So we think that there's a huge opportunity for this concept, and we're building our first 2 campuses here in Austin, and then we're going to start looking in some other markets for. We're going to look at both kind of secondary markets like Austin, Asheville, Nashville, Portland, and then we're also going to look at kind of markets like the Hudson Valley, Truckee, Tahoe,
Yeah.
kind of destination locations. So, so like I said, we've got our equity committed for the first 4 to 5 campuses, and then we're going to go from there. Hopefully, we'll roll it out across the country.
Awesome. Well, listen, I love it. It's a beautiful project, and you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the younger folks, they're not interested in the old school colonial and capes and the things we typically see out there. Even myself, I look at those and I think, man, it's just so clean and neat. It's inspiring space. It's well lit, and it's healthy. That's where I want to be as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think these people on the idea is that there's, while they may be relatively small, the kind of how they live, their connection to the outdoor spaces, a connection to the landscape,
Yep.
being around people of our kind of like-minded people, interested in design, interested in sustainability. That something that's lacking, I think, in a lot of these places is
That's
a
right.
real sense of community. And that's kind of what we hope to foster with
Well,
Kindred. So.
the kindred
We're
spirit in the
excited.
community and the kindred community. I love it. I think this was a great show. And listen, everybody, I mean, as an architect, as a designer, as a developer, there's real value in talking with people like Chris and others that are out there doing it, that are learning the hard lessons as they go on some of the projects, I am sure. But the value is there, and that's why they keep pushing forward. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And if you're a manufacturer out there, by the way, reach out to Chris as they're growing across this country. They need great partners as well. And I know you're all out there. So make sure you reach out to Chris and talk about what you're doing. And maybe there'll be some future collaborations or in future collaborations in the future, I guess is what we'll say. Other than
Please
that,
do.
listen, everybody, we will see you Friday, 1 o'clock. Make sure that you go to our YouTube channel right now and hit that subscribe button. We can't bring any of this to you if we don't record it and we don't have great sponsors, but we want you to watch everything that we're doing. So go there and subscribe. It helps us tremendously in everything that we're doing. And if you're not subscribed, if you're not subscribed to any of Chris's channels, please go there and subscribe as well. Follow what they're doing. They've been doing this for a long time. They're really taking it to the next level. And we will be back live Friday, 1 p.m. with Mark Bare Naked Willie. So make sure that you join us for that. Let's give one more wave goodbye to Chris. Chris, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks a
I'll
lot,
come
Dave.
back to you after the outro. But everybody else, we'll see you. We'll see you Friday. Bye now.
Take care.